can.
Okay.
Um, do you want me to talk about like all three
Yeah, that's fine.
chapters? Like 4, 9, 10? Okay.
Hmm.
I'll just do like a brief overview and then we can do that and then we'll go on to the writing ones.
Hmm.
Um, okay. Chapter 4. I mostly just wrote down those three main principles. That was like the key takeaway for me. So the students need modeling and not just expectations.
Hmm.
Um, so like explicitly introducing like the name of a letter and then the sound of a letter and then the voiced print and also like using your finger and like using that as a guide to model what kids are supposed to be like seeing and so they can do that and keep track of their own um like speech and language recognition,
Hmm.
word recognition. And then the second principle that students need to connect early literacy skills and not simply learn like isolated skills, like one at a time. Um, and that was like the recursive writing model is what I wrote down for this. So like we study, we write, we share, we
Hmm.
react and revise. Um, I thought that was just kind of important because I think still some teachers are stuck on teaching like one letter or two letters a week and then the next week you do another one and it becomes like very isolated in how you're teaching language and
Yeah.
breaking up like kind of like the phonemic awareness and like phonics and
Yeah.
it mostly just becomes memorization instead of
Hmm.
an like active learning
Yeah.
cycle.
I think that's like part of the problem too with like
Hmm.
teaching the alphabet in order is they're
Hmm.
just memorizing it. Like
Right.
they're gonna sing the ABCs every single day. Like
Right.
teaching them in a
I
different
feel like
order will just help to
Yeah.
like
yeah. The
better.
textbook we read with Dr. Green. Did you both take the class with Dr. Green right before
Hmm.
this?
Hmm.
The textbook we read with Dr. Green had like a whole chapter about this, about not teaching them in order, but teaching them in the order of how often they would get used and clumping
Yeah.
letters together that you would use more often. So
Hmm.
waiting until the end to teach less common letters like Q and Y and stuff,
Hmm.
and then grouping letters you would see based on how common they are in words, especially in like the high frequency words when kids are just getting started with writing.
Hmm. For sure. And I'm not sure if it was in this specific chapter because I feel like all the texts this week are like clumping into like one, but the like having the letters in your name, that was like a part in one of
Yeah.
them and how like
Yeah,
getting them to understand those and how like what sounds they make and what they look like so that they can identify their name and like build those important letters and go from there.
Hmm.
yeah, I work at like a daycare and preschool. Like it's
Mhm.
turned into summer camp now, but at there was like a day where we had like free time, so I took whiteboards and I pulled kids like a few at a time just because like I was curious, and I was like, "Can you write your name for me?" And some of them like did a fantastic job. One girl wrote her full name. I was very impressed, first and last name. She was like, "I got
Wow.
that's penmanship." I was like, "You're adorable. Good job. Good play." And then some kids like couldn't write it at all. And it was like the very end of the year of preschool. And I was like, I just couldn't remember when I learned to write my name. So I wasn't sure. Like, I know obviously all kids learn at different times, but I was like, is that the standard going into kindergarten? You think that kids should already know at least how to write their first name or to form the first letter of their first name? Like some of the kids couldn't even do that. I was like, really? Not even just the first letter? So I like wrote it above and I had them write it underneath just to see.
Mhm.
Like some of them could do that.
Yeah. That's a conversation that I had a lot in my undergrad at NAS. Like, we would consistently get on the topic of how like rigorous instruction has gotten over the years. Like kindergarten used to like you'd come in, you're learning numbers 1 through 10, the alphabet, like very
Hmm.
simple. And now like the expectation for students, like parents need to already have been teaching kids apparently like how to read books. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure to teach your kids and for parents or caregivers who can't be around like during the day with their children, they are not always going to learn like all those necessary skills and I feel like it just keeps getting harder and harder as we progress. And we got talking about even in upper levels like the regents exams and
Hmm.
all those kind of like state testing things. they've gotten way more difficult over the years, and like the different subjects you or like topics you have to know within each subject is like really wild. So I feel like it really is continuing to change, and it's almost getting like too much, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think it's the same with college. Honestly, I had the conversation with my mom at a point when I was stressed. It might have been like my second year. There was like one semester that I was like, I'm having a really tough time. And she was like, I get it. I did it. I was like, no. I'm sure you did whatever you did and you had your struggles, but you don't know exactly what I'm feeling right this like it's
Yeah.
different the way
Mhm.
that it is. And we do have more tools to help us, but that also means there's more roadblocks kind of to make
Mhm.
sure we don't use certain tools like AI
Right.
and stuff,
Yeah.
which is totally understandable, but yeah. And then we also had like COVID, which in my opinion, I felt dumber coming out of it. And it's not an excuse, it's just like my attention span was shorter. I like didn't care to put the effort in the way I did before.
Mhm.
And so I work hard to do it now, but it's tricky.
Well, and then like AI coming out of COVID after a few years, like I feel like the past decade has kind of just been, like you said, roadblocks and different like humps we're trying to get over,
Yeah.
especially in education. And I don't know if we've exactly found a solution yet, but
Yeah. I feel like because of that too, like we've gotten away from like the explicit instruction and like using data to inform everything, which is so hard because all of our books and stuff are like explicit instruction, like whatever. But that's like not really how kids are learning anymore. So how am I supposed to explicitly teach like the sounds and the names of the letters if they can't?
Yeah. I feel like it just doesn't take into account that sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Sorry, you like froze for me.
yeah, I think you froze.
Oh my gosh. So I thought you were done. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and like taking into account having 20 some odd kids and being like, okay, I'm gonna explicitly teach so many different things, and like at the same time the behavior management, assuming you're alone with all these kids, like it's a gen ed classroom and no one has gotten pulled to explicitly teach is very, very difficult unless maybe you're in a small group or working one-on-one, which isn't always possible. A lot of instruction has to be large group because there isn't time to do every single subject with explicit instruction, even if that would be best for the children.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of touches on chapter 10, like, which was just explicit instruction. And that just like kind of got me thinking too. I feel like it can be so dependent on the teacher. Like you might think you're teaching really explicitly, but it's like your own personal like bias and how you're viewing what you're teaching. Like you may actually really have lots of gaps in what you're teaching and not realize it, but so like a student who might learn differently and is not picking up on what you're teaching or trying to teach explicitly like might actually miss out on some really important information or way of learning because it's something you as the teacher overlooked. So
yeah,
I don't know, like it just got me thinking about how we say like explicit instruction, but is it really the same level of explicitness between each educator? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
It's
something
also
that I had like a connection to. Because in my small groups, all we really do is explicit instruction, and my like the special ed coordinator, she comes to watch us once a week and gives us feedback on how our explicit instruction is and gives us like different strategies for use for the different students that they notice aren't really benefiting from it. So I'm really thankful to have that, and I think that would definitely help like more closing those gaps more, because like one of my student teaching placements, the teacher was like, yeah, I get like observed maybe for 5 minutes once a year, and I was like, well, like how are you supposed to get better? How are you supposed to close those gaps for yourself as a teacher?
Right, you need like all those different levels of input.
both of my like student teaching teachers, it was like second and first grade, would like I saw multiple times they would like give an instruction and then get multiple questions from the kids. So they would stop and regroup with everyone. One teacher was like very adamant about having them come back to the carpet because if they were at their seats, they would continue whatever the activity was. The other teacher, the kids were a little bit older, so she was just like, all right, put everything down, eyes on me. And she would give the instructions again, but make sure to point out whatever she had missed or whatever had gotten lost in what she thought was common knowledge because it was common knowledge to like them. But to the kids, it was like, oh my gosh, like I can't, like it didn't occur to them. So it's hard to think about explicit instruction because I would give you a different instruction than I would give a 7-year-old because some things would be obvious to you that wouldn't be obvious to a 7-year-old.
Yeah. I had like the same experience in a first grade gen ed classroom as well. And it's almost like you repeat all these explicit instructions, and then by the time you send them off, you've done 5 minutes of explicit instructions, and they lose the first 3 things you said. And so it's like if you're not actively planning for each explicit moment throughout the day with like words, written, pictures, like if you don't have all those different models posted somewhere, most likely half, or I don't even know how many, but a lot of kids are going to miss at least a few points you said. Like I feel like we can't expect that much out of students, especially that young too. Like we can really try, but they can only retain so much information at a time. So if we're telling them all these things, they're going to go back to their seat and immediately forget the first 2 things you said and pay attention to the last 2.
That I think is also why it's so important to build routines. Like I'm thinking about when we did phonics in one of my classes. Every day it was the same, so we went over whatever the letters were for that day and we practiced, like the teacher would draw them on the board and everyone would say the sounds, and then the students would be dismissed to do a very specific work page. We would say the page number and it was written on the board, and I would be like, so you'll do it like this, and you'd sample it on the board. And then they know when they finish that sheet, you turn it into the white bucket or whatever, and you move on to your like word study packet, like your just extra practice packet that you just have. Because some kids would zoom through it and other kids would take 5 to 10 minutes. So building the routine helped students know exactly what to do next. That was very helpful for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, do we want to move on to the writing portion of the readings?
Yes. Okay.
Chapter 12 of that same text,
Mm-hmm.
and then the word study, and what was the name of the other one?
Like the SOR says about writing,
Yes.
or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the main ideas that I got out of that was that writing is
Wait,
just
which one? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I think it's from chapter 12, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just that writing is overall a different form of communication than speaking, and students can use it to share their understanding, communicate things they're learning, make arguments, tell stories, share information, and overall just really discover their own voice as a reader, which sounds like a lot, and it feels overwhelming to me, but like really, like writing is such a big part of what they're doing in school, but it's just as important as speaking or reading or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, reading and writing are definitely like those 2 blocks that like if you don't have the starters for those, everything else is going to be pretty tricky because after learning those, everything is kind of based off of that, which is where I feel like a lot of students fall behind, which is what makes me very upset for them because it's okay enough and like they're reading close enough to grade level or writing is passing, like just scraping by, so they keep pushing them, but then they're having a tough time with comprehension or answering comprehension questions, and they're frustrated. And I remember like in the book we read in Dr. Green's class, it said like when you're struggling with literacy at such a young age, it like discourages you and like you get like a negative mindset about yourself as a reader and a writer, and it usually stays with you unless something is adjusted or interrupted in that like negative mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took away really the same things. I wrote down some of those theories too that they mentioned. So, like there's a cognitive, sociocognitive, and functional theories.
Mm-hmm.
I just ended up writing those definitions down because I thought that was like helpful to keep in mind as I was thinking about writing instruction. Um, and then anything else I had for that? Yeah, I guess like the disciplinary writing, like it's gonna be different between disciplines, how you like the way in which you write, the things that you write about, and like how you're structuring your writing. And I wrote it down. It was table 12.3 on page 174.
Okay.
But it was like organizers for like comparing different ideas, and it could be like within the discipline or with like between two different disciplines. And there were a couple that just I really like how they outlined like a format for writing. So if you're writing like something for ELA, you're gonna have like your intro, your like thesis, your evidence, your like all that labeled. If you're writing something for I don't know, like history, you're gonna have more of like a timeline stance to it, or it's like all different. So I thought that was important to think about in the terms of writing because I feel like so often I've heard that like the reading is the most different,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean like we have to focus on teaching them how to write in the disciplines as well, and not just like identify those texts.
Right.
Did your teacher do like the peanut butter and jelly thing when you were first learning how to write like the science stuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Wait, what is that?
They like make you write down, okay, how would you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And they have
Oh yes.
I keep seeing it on TikTok and I'm like, I can't wait. I hope I get to do it one day.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do remember that now, actually. Right, it's like, get the bread,
Yeah.
untie the bread bag.
Yes.
Mhm. That's really funny. Okay, do we want to move on to word study?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this whole text, I reread this more thoroughly a second time around after doing the, like, well, I don't know what she called
The
it.
words their way thing.
Uh-huh. So that was kind of just like a refresher to make sure I was understanding the different developmental stages.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, when I was doing that, I was like a little lost at first.
Yeah.
But then rereading it and going through each different stage and like, okay, how can I actually like apply the grade level of this child and the skills they still need to work on, and like, are those matching? Is like, does this make sense and what stage they're at? So yeah, I kind of read this thinking back to the word study I did and kind of just like a little more in depth, but that was like the first chapter was mostly that for me.
Mm-hmm. I feel like one of the things that I really liked about it was when it talked about like that braid of literacy and how there's so many different things that go into it, but the longer and the more you practice those skills, like the more it will pay off and the students can read and write and speak and listen better. But I also agree with you that like going back, I read it a second time too, and going back and doing that was a lot more helpful for me because it was really overwhelming at first. I was like, okay, I'll just do this and then I'll go back and look at it more. But yeah.
So chapter 2 getting started.
Yes.
I just need to like look over my notes here because I like to bullet point stuff and then I just like don't understand my own train of thought.
Yeah.
Oh, I liked the spelling inventories. So their like definition was a list of words specifically chosen to represent a variety of spelling or phonics features at increasing levels of difficulty. I feel like this was a better approach to like a spelling test.
Yeah.
Because I know we're kind of being advised to like not necessarily give straight up spelling test anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a way to kind of still incorporate like the idea of just seeing a lot of those like important words, because like I do really understand that like they aren't that effective anymore and there's much better ways to do it, but I also think that like once in a while it is helpful just I think to at least visually see the words, and even if it's just the teacher like reading them out loud and the students just like looking as the teacher reads it, I think it's just helpful to have some sort of like visual and auditory
Mm-hmm.
like match, and that's what that kind of reminded me of. But
Yeah. I think the spelling inventory was really like a good thing too, because when you're doing it with a student, like when I did it with my student, it didn't really feel like a test. She was like, "Oh, I get to help you," and I was like, "Okay."
right.
Um, but I also like seeing like more of the breakdown of like the beginning sound, the ending sound, all the blends and things like that in it, as opposed to like a regular spelling test where you might not see all of those
Right.
different pieces split up like that. So I think that's really like important for me too. Just being able to see those differences and really see where students are struggling and
Yeah.
what they're really doing well with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like out of that, it's helpful to identify like even if you might have two um, students that are like reading or writing at completely different levels, but they might be struggling on the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful to maybe like group those kids, because if you're teaching more for like the skills and not necessarily like the levels, like I know teachers tend to group students and like maybe not quite at grade level, then a grade level, and then above grade level. And I feel like that can really be hard, because if you have students within those groups that are all struggling with a different thing, it's like how can you effectively teach those? So yeah, I think out of these like composite charts and stuff that you can also make more of those practices in your own class.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like making those small groups. I just keep saying things are important, but um at my school, like that's what I teach in my resource room is small groups.
Right.
And we don't always like you said, we don't always pull the kids as like well below or whatever. Sometimes it is more of like, oh, this student is struggling with CVCE words, so I'm going to bring them into this group.
Yeah.
Just kind of like differentiating that I think is really important, especially as a special education teacher. It just really helps like boost everyone's abilities. And I also think that they kind of get that label put on them when you do call the groups like below or on grade level or above grade level, and kind of getting rid of those, or at least not letting the students hear that language has been really, really great for my students. Like I've seen their confidence grow, and it's helped their literacy skills grow too.
For sure.
I feel like they didn't do that well when we were kids. Like they let us know exactly where we were. Did you guys have like the ABC like reading levels, like the whole alphabet? Like you start at A, which is like the lowest, and then you work your way to Z.
No.
No, I didn't.
It stressed me out as a kid.
Yeah.
I was like, why am I only here? Like, why can I not get any further? What happens after Z? Like, do I never read ever again? Is there nowhere else to go? Am I never gonna get better? Like, I was stressed.
Yeah, I do remember though, like we would have groups, and I mean, usually we ended up figuring out what each group was,
Yeah.
but also you could kind of tell just based on like we would have specific books that we could choose from for like whatever color or letter, whatever we were on.
Mhm.
And it's like you can tell if you're picking a book from your section and it's like this big, and then the group next to you has like big chapter books they can choose from. It's like, okay, well, obviously you can kind of tell where you are.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that kind of was a confidence destroyer too.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think our kind of generation of teachers is already doing a good job of just being understanding and like cognizant of like I don't know, the feelings and emotions of kids. Like, I think we're doing a little like a good job of trying to prevent that kind of stuff before it happens, which is good.
Yeah. That's kind of all I have.
Yeah. Oh, I did, I guess, like, what was this, chapter 3? I kind of just went through, like, the closed sort versus the open sort, because I didn't really know what that was before reading it. And I guess, like, the open sort, from what I took away from it, was that students just, like, have more choice and responsibility in creating those, then the closed sort was just kind of, like, teacher driven.
Yeah.
And then I wrote down all the different options of like choices they gave. So I thought that was helpful as a helpful thing to take away from that chapter.
I feel like the word study book had a lot of different like instructional recommendations other than the sorts too, which is really helpful, like especially as we start to get our own classrooms and things.
Definitely. Okay, and then SOR. I liked this book.
Yeah.
It was like not very overwhelming.
I
felt like it highlighted the main ideas, and I really liked how at the end they had all those different activities that you could kind of like choose from.
Yep.
A lot of it was just a really good, like I felt like that introduction was a really good refresher on all the key aspects of reading and writing. So, like the simple view of reading, the reading rope, the writing rope, like I think that was just a good brain refresher. Like, okay, this is what I really need to know and like base my instruction off of.
Yeah.
So I thought that was helpful.
I feel like they talked a lot about like reading and writing strategies being like integrated together. So one of the questions I had was if there are like any times when reading and writing strategies should be separated. Like I don't know if we should always be integrating them together, because at the end of the day they are a little bit different from each other. So if I use like one strategy in writing, is it going to confuse my student in reading?
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. And I think that gets hard too, like if it's dependent on if you're doing like individual instruction, small group, whole group, because once you start, if you're teaching those together all the time, like students still might be falling behind in one over the other. So you can't keep like moving at that same pace with both of them together, or else a student who's already falling behind in one their confidence is going to be completely diminished, and then they'll be falling behind in both. So I think that's like definitely where I would start to separate them a little bit, or at least like in small group time separate them, because I think that could get really frustrating for a student who's not completely understanding.
Definitely.
I also really liked how they kind of had stages of writing.
Yeah.
So the planning, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. It just really got like nitty gritty with that, but I thought it was very helpful to have like revision and editing, like giving students the chance to like differentiate between like the content and mechanics, and having them take on those different perspectives of looking at their own work in a different way. And I feel like they didn't really talk about it that much, but then like applying those to when they're looking at peers writing, to like if you ever have like a session where they're kind of doing peer review. I think that's just a really great skill to build within students of being able to look at stuff with a different lens and
Yeah.
kind of have like that critical thinking cap.
I used to have those, like, we would use that as a, like, writing checklist, all those different stages that they had, so that was definitely a good reminder, especially, like, now that I'm the teacher, like, knowing that there really is a difference between some of the stages, and I can't just, like, group them together. Like, I feel like we used to just group, like, revising and editing together, or pre-writing and drafting, and it's like, well, they actually serve, like, pretty different purposes now, and it makes more sense being on the teacher side of it now.
I thought that was helpful for me too, like still as a student. I'm like, okay, maybe I should actually be like drafting and planning some of my stuff because sometimes I like to just go into that final draft and
Me too.
that's not always the best idea. So it was good to kind of think about like what actually is the purpose for planning and really like getting different ideas out and just kind of having like a like brain dump of ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I have for all of them.
Yeah. I think they tied pretty well together. Like I found myself just like consistently writing a lot of the same things, just in like more detail, but
Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna stop the recording.